The web server contains web pages, and web pages contain two different kinds of content: static content and dynamic content. What's the difference between static content and dynamic content? The main difference between the two is how interactive they are. Static content is less interactive. It stays the same every time you access it, regardless of what you do with it. Text and photos are examples of static content. Text and photos are often meant to stay the same for every user who accesses them. Dynamic content, on the other hand, is interactive. It's usually some kind of interactive program embedded in the web page. Because it's interactive, dynamic content is potentially different each time you access it. A good example of dynamic content is a restaurant's web page that lets you build and order your own burrito online. Okay, that illustration gives you an idea of how your web browser interacts with web pages. Now let's take a closer look at the HTML code that web pages are written in. Here on the left, we have a simple web page. And over on the right, that's the source HTML code for this web page. That source code is what gets stored in the web server. Your web browser accesses that code, and it interprets and displays the code for you in a page resembling the one here on the left. For this particular web page, the first 6 lines of code are setup code that gives the browser information about the web page. There isn't much in these first 6 lines that's particularly important for us right now. I will briefly mention 2 things though. First, for this web page, the setup code is only 6 lines long, but for most professionally built web pages that you would interact with on a daily basis, there would be a lot more code than you see here. This is just an example. Second, I want to point out that the title of the web page is written between these 2 title tags here. Notice that the title is what is displayed in the tab on your web browser. Technically speaking, the title of a web page is this text that's displayed in the tab on your web browser. So, if you're ever trying to cite a web page for a paper, now you know where you can find the official title of a web page. Let's move down to the code contained between these 2 body tags. The code between these 2 tags defines what the bulk of the web page looks like. We can see a heading at the top of the web page that reads sample web page, and if we look over at the code, we see that the heading corresponds to the information between these H3 tags. Everything else on the web page is contained between a series of P tags. In web coding, P tags like this define paragraphs. A new P tag tells the browser to skip down a line and begin displaying a new paragraph of content. As we can see, each P tag here corresponds in order with another line of content over on the web page. Now, I want to show you 2 significant features of HTML that have security implications for you and me. The first is the difference between local images and remote images. You see, if you build a web page in HTML, one option is for you to upload your own images for the web page onto the same server where you're uploading all of the other HTML code. These are called local images. This first picture of a fish is a local image. The person who built this web page uploaded this image to the web himself or herself. However, HTML also has the ability to display images from other web pages in your web page. This isn't always legal, depending on how you use other people's images, but in principle, it's very easy to define a remote image from another web page as the image to be displayed on your web page. This second picture of a fish happens to be a remote image. Somebody else uploaded it to a different web page, but whoever built the web page that we're looking at has written the code so that it will take this image from somewhere else on the web and display it here. If you look over at the HTML code for this web page, you can see the web address where this picture is being hosted. If you are just looking at the web page, you can't tell whether an image is local or remote. You have to view the source code to make that distinction. So how is the distinction between local and remote images significant for cybersecurity? Well, some cybercriminals will build fake web pages that are intended to look like web pages from your bank or another trusted institution. They may use remote images from the trusted institution's web page to make their counterfeit web page look exactly like the original. You can't really tell that an image is from a remote source if you just look at the page itself, but if you learn some basics of HTML, it's not very difficult to check if a suspicious web page is relying on remote images like this one. All web browsers will allow you to view a web page's source code, so in theory you could check for remote images on any web page. Let's look at one more feature of HTML that is relevant to cybersecurity. In HTML, it's extremely easy to lie about the destination of hyperlinks. Here, you can see the title of a hyperlink in black. That's the part that gets displayed on the web page. Over here in blue, you can see the actual web destination of each hyperlink. So this particular link is labeled dishonestly. It claims to navigate to CNN.com, but really it takes you to www.dougj.net. Criminal web pages and also scam emails will frequently contain misleading hyperlinks like this. They're designed to trick you into visiting malicious web pages that you wouldn't normally visit. The good news is that web browsers will tell you where a hyperlink really navigates to. All you have to do is hover the mouse button over the hyperlink without clicking on it. A small box should pop up somewhere on the browser window, and it will tell you where the link will really take you. Okay, that's all for now. In the next lesson, we'll continue discussing security topics that are relevant to web browsing.